Okay, it's a video for the new Yanyin X HBB Mahina. It is essentially a retuned moonlight. Mahina in Hawaiian means moonlight, so that's where that name came from. I'm going to give you a closer look at it, but let's move along. This is the video. I'll be publishing it tonight. Several people have already purchased this set before the video. Thank you very much for your trust. Let me go ahead and explain some stuff to you and what you purchased and what it does, and for people that might be interested in it. Let's turn, not too quickly. This is a graph of the original Yanyin moonlight, which is in green, and the Mahina, which is in red. And you can see that the essentially this is 300 hertz and back that's been elevated in a nice tight glide that actually comes in under my own target when it comes to mid bass. It's very clean, and it's a take on the Elysian X, if you see that put over now, which is this set right here. To explain to people why this is the set that if someone says, you know, what's the bass line that you like, this was the first set that I bought, and I'm happy because it costs like $4,500. It's not the Annihilator because you're looking at the caps. It's got 4 ESTs inside the nozzle. It is a gold X, actually, and I'm very much in love with this set. I have a library that goes from Vivaldi. Let's get a little look up here for just a second. I got a library that can go from Big Boy to BTO to Blind Faith to Black Sabbath to Vivaldi to Alice in Chains to Aerosmith to AC/DC to 50 Cent to Tupac, and on and on and on and on. And I found that for a long time the sets that I listened to would do good with certain genres and not others, ideally. And then when I got this set, the Elysian X, the appeal to me was that I could go from Bruce Springsteen to Bone Crusher, to Eazy-E, to Jim Croce, to the Grateful Dead, to Led Zeppelin, to another artist, and never really think about anything, just enjoy the music because everything was in the low end where it was supposed to be, whether it was a bassist or another instrument. But when I migrated into something like Elton John, where I'm focused on a piano and vocalist, or Jim Croce, which is a vocalist and an acoustic guitar with nothing else, no production going on, there wasn't anything getting in the way, so I never thought, well, this is good for but it's not so good for another thing. And a lot of that had to do with the low frequency tuning, because that was the area that would be of concern to me or notable to my ear, when I would think, wait a second, when the levee breaks, kick drum sounds a little bit soft, which was a complaint that I had about the original Moonlight. It was about the only complaint that I actually had, and the bassist in Sultans of Swing was something notable. I did my video of the Moonlight, and I said, you know, I like this, I like that, I like that. If I had to pick something, I'd say the mid bass seems a little bit lean. And the company reached out to me and said, what would you do and how would you change it if we asked you? And I said, there's a set called the Elysian X. I don't have to do squiggles with you. I can just send this to you and say, that is how I would retune this. Try that. Tried 2, no. Third one came back, yes. Listen to it. Does the driver do it well? Somebody yesterday talked about the Canon and said the Canon, it sounded kind of woofy and woolly. The Canon is a set that has a bass line that goes from the sub bass to the gain, and is what old school people call bleeding or bloating into the mids, because it basically really doesn't have mids. Mids can be done in 2 ways that are very common nowadays. One is what is called a short porch. That's what I call it, and a lot of other people call it. That's when this area is corrected by 3 to 4, gets stable, and then it transverses into the gain and starts to take its ride. So it's got a slope, it settles, glides, and then it comes back up. There's another way where you've got a mid-bass tuck, and it's got a longer porch right here. The impact of that is that it makes low-frequency instruments like kick drums and bass guitars sound a little bit different. There's thunder outside. And it also can impact vocals to sound kind of dry. Now, that said, that is the ideal tuning for certain genres and certain people, which brings back how important music library is when we're all talking about gear and how well it does. So the Elysian Acoustic X type of tuning where it's sub-bass focus. It takes a glide all the way down to about 300 hertz, and it's got a very nice trajectory and angle. It's not bloated or bulging or doing anything that's going to maybe impact the quality or the perceived quality of low-frequency instruments. It gives it a natural replay. It's got actual mids, and then it comes and takes up the gain. So I found the Elysian to be the go-to, and in this case it worked very good. I am able to listen to my library, whether it's Tupac or Big Boy Kill Jill, or if I'm going to an Elton John track, or if I want to listen to some Verdi, Vivaldi, Tchaikovsky, which I'm known to do. I don't talk about it in reviews so much because I don't know how much my audience is actually listening to classical music this far into my life as a YouTuber. If you listen to classical music and you want me to talk about it more, string sections and wood, all that, let me know, because I can do it because I listen to it regularly. It's always something that I check out. While we're on that, maybe I'll throw up a picture. This is, if music is the context, then the POV, the point of view, is these tracks and these moments in the tracks and these particular things that are being searched for. These are what I always look for in addition to regular listening, to see if I think that the bass is in the way, or it's too far back, or the vocals are where they should be, or they're too far forward and they're going to be fatiguing to me, or if the cymbal strike is significant in a way that's surprising or atypical. It's not what I usually hear. These are the things that help me do that, to evaluate gear and decide whether or not I think it's good or bad, instead of doing other ways. I need to do that. I also start with bass, because bass is on the left side of the frequency response, and then I move along. Now, if you were to buy this set, how can you tell what it is? In three ways. One is it's got a sticker on the side, it's got a sticker on the packaging, and then on the inside, this set doesn't have it because this is the final sample. It's going to have a HBB here. I might put a picture, and then it's going to have a logo and a serial number, so there'll be no doubt that you have a retuned version. So that's that. The case itself is one of those pimp cases. I loved it when I did the video for the Moonlight, and I said everybody should have one of these, and then I think Crinset has that as well. So having a bunch of these stacked up under a table or on a shelf is very nice. It's very comfy. I would like that for my Elysian X, please. Thank you very much. Now, talking about music, the bass hit, I can take my gloves off now. The bass hit on Big Boy Kill Jill is 34 hertz, the lowest one. Let's go ahead and get to that. It is significant and powerful as it's supposed to be. The intro, which is Vocaloid Hatsune Miku, sounds good. She sounds proper. If you want to see what Hatsune Miku looks like on a spectrogram, she is right. Yeah, I get into every little teeny thing here. Where are we? Big Boy. Welcome to the jungle. Fleetwood Mac, Sweet Leaf, Old Man, Back in Black. Big Boy Kill Jill. Here we go. This is the intro right here. And this is a computer-generated female voice on a spectrogram. And then this is when the bass drops, obviously, right here. Let's see if I can highlight right here. You can see that this is, I called it at 34. This is at 38 right here. This does the low frequency hits very good. And also the Vocaloid, which is a computer-generated female voice, and can sometimes sound intense on sets, like my own collaboration, the Olena, in stock form. It can get up on you. As you can look on the spectrogram, which is software, it's not ears, it picks up info if it's there or not. There's not as much stuff up in the treble as you would probably imagine. Now, if we take a look at Fleetwood Mac Dreams, you kind of run into the same thing where you're running into the highest harmonics at about around 10 or 11 or 12 kilohertz. Exodus, Bob Marley, these are all Sweet Leaf. There's a lot going on right now. This is Ozzy Osbourne's vocals, harmonic extension right here, and they go all the way up to about 12 or 13 kilohertz. I'm going to do a video someday about extension, what it actually does, what it doesn't do. That's another video though. So the low frequency on Big Boy Kill Jill is great. I thought it was on the original as well. I didn't really have anything that stepped out on me. Black Sabbath's Massive Reality is a drummer and a bassists that are playing basically at the same time. It can get kind of busy. The Tin Hi-Fi P1 was a awakening for me because I had always thought that this was it sounded good on the Susvara, but never on IEMs, and I just never really thought about it much. Susvara is a planar. Didn't think about that though. P1 original, it played this like a champ. Or the ability to really listen to the bassist with just ignore the drummer, because he's not hazing, he's not fading out the other musician, or I could listen to the other, and so I could pick the drummer or the bassist and just tune into them without them canceling each other out. Dynamic based or even balanced armatures can get very non-high fidelity at this very moment on this particular track, on the video you might have just taken a look at. This set does it, I think, better than the original Moonlight, which might sound counterintuitive. If you increase the bass just a little bit, then you're maybe going to diminish the overall replay because you're putting more focus on the low end. The fact of the matter is I'm putting the bassist and the drummer in position that they're supposed to be in originally. They're doing semi-in-track solos. They're supposed to sound prominent. They do more so than on the other Moonlight, and kind of like how the Elysian X plays it, which is very well, without doing an overt or obvious diminishing of the vocal quality when Ozzy steps in, or the guitar isn't battling and making a more audible V because I've got guitar distortion on my right and I've got low frequencies on my left and I'm losing everything in the middle. It never really happened. So another reason why the Elysian X was picked as a model for how to do the low frequency. Sultans of Swing was the track that I picked out in particular in the Moonlight video because again, audiophile wants high fidelity. High fidelity is faithful reproduction. Faithful reproduction is not colored, and I don't mean the tuning wise, I mean that the production and the master, people have talked about this before. There are some instances, there's thousands of them, but the kick drum in When the Levee Breaks is intentionally authoritative. The reviews done of the album and the track by their peers at the time of the release of the album indicated it was a forceful, powerful intro with John Bonham showing his power and his force. It was written many years ago about this track. So when I listen to a set and that kick drum sounds not prominent, it sounds there. That's not high fidelity because that's not playing back the original in the way that it was intended and mastered and based on all literature and commentary from the period of its release to the present. That's the way it was interpreted. Doing different from that is not high fidelity. I expect the kick drum to be prominent. I expect it not to interfere with Robert Plant's vocals. When I'm paying the money that something like this costs, I'm not going to negotiate guitar solos taking the focus of the whole replay. I'm not going to negotiate the bassist on a Rumors track getting in the way of the vocals because there's constantly one or two or three or all four doing vocals. I'm not going to negotiate diminished vocal quality because I'm getting authentic bass tuning. It's 2022. There's thousands and thousands of pieces of spaghetti on the wall that are liked by many people. I'm not personally going to accept a set that does one thing good, like the bass is great, but the vocals are garbage. I'm just not going to do it. So this set, if you bought it, let me get back down there. I think you made a great purchase. It plays back my library like a champ. Cymbal strikes, let me get to that. So vocals are obviously great because my entire library contains vocals, except for Vivaldi, Verdi, and Tchaikovsky. Those are the only non-vocal artists that exist in my library. So vocals sound great. The Fleetwood Mac album sounds good. Everything I've got sounds good on it. Now cymbal strikes. Oh, Steely Dan. Here's the thing about Steely Dan. Steely Dan sounds pretty good on everything. There's some things that just using it for critical evaluation or saying this sounds good or that doesn't is kind of hard. I want to note the replay of live stuff. Like Waiting for Columbus by Little Feat, One More from the Road, Frampton Comes Alive, U2, the live album. This has proper extension, so it gives the energy that is late in the production its due, because there's not really a lot up past 10K, and it's the trajectory, as you can see right here. Let me hold on this particular moment, and you can see the meat of the fundamentals, and you can see the decay of the harmonics. Now, here is an interesting point that I'm going to talk about before I leave. Sound itself has a birth, an apex, and a death. It comes and it goes, and when you see that on a graph, it looks a lot like this. When you take a set and it's the one weakness of the Elysian X. You see that bump? That's not a resonant bump. It's at around 15K, and it's lifting the later harmonics, which would be in this range, and boosting the later, which is supposed to be dying, and putting it up over what is preceding it. That is stuff that you might not really care about, but it would be something that your ears would maybe pick up on. That something sounds, the tail of a cymbal sounds a little, like a little bit more there than you're expecting it, because of reasons that you're not really, you don't care, you're moving along. I got ADHD, I'm an Aspie. This stuff gets to me, because this is the way that sound works, and it does have a rise. This is the fundamentals, and it does in the harmonic section. Ear gain being right about here, and then this rises, and then it falls, and this is vocals and cymbals and harmonics right here. This is Sweet Leaf, and it falls away. So this part right here at 10, 11, 12K is lower than it is at 8K, and it's lower than it is at about 5K. So tuning in general, in my belief, should match the way that music and sound actually works, and having treble that is over upper mids doesn't really make any sense, because that's not really how anything that I know works. But I don't listen to obscure genres that might actually do that kind of stuff intentionally. On my library, it sticks out through cymbals and other things being a little bit too energetic. Vocals, really not so much. Sometimes. This is Ozzy Osbourne right here, and he's got a screaming, grating voice. I'll go ahead and let you guys go because I'm rambling, but this video is going to be coming up. As you can see, there's really nothing beyond 13 kilohertz, and that's something that repeats itself on and on and on. But we'll talk about that another time. So this is the Mahina. It's got fantastic bass based on a legend. It's got great mids. It's got a treble that is to taste. It calms the upper harmonics in the way that the original Moonlight does, the way that the T, the way that other sets with the same profile do. I found that to be natural myself. It's an organic, immersive experience. I'm very stoked with the collaboration. Working with them was excellent. The point of the collab was, what does this guy want? Let's get that done. The communication went smooth. It's a great company. The set turned out fantastic. I'm extremely stoked. If you bought it and you have a library that's anything like mine, I think you're going to love it. It's a great set. And I'll leave you guys here. Let's talk about this in the future. Let's talk about what a four-string bass guitar does, and where it exists, and where it doesn't exist, and what it bothers and what it doesn't bother. Let's talk about a cymbal strike and exactly where it lives. Let's see if I can, like, here's one right here. This is a cymbal strike, and you can see it. It's got fundamentals rooted all the way down around 100 to 200 hertz. It peaks in its energy around 800 hertz, and then you start to get into what is visually and obviously the harmonic extension that goes all the way out to 12 kilohertz, where that dies, and that is a cymbal. But we'll talk about that another time. Fascinating stuff. I would rather talk about this stuff than just say something is something. I can't watch or read other people who are doing it in the hobby or are just buyers and talk about something having some kind of trait without context, just because of the way my brain works. I don't know. Show me. Explain to me. Let me go listen and say, oh, damn, I never noticed that. That's a good catch. Or I don't agree with that. Like, the more that we drill down as influencers and reviewers and evaluators, the more that we kind of connect with one another, because some things are clear and obvious and others are debatable. And they're less debatable if we engage into the discussions repeatedly and come to some kind of conclusion. So somebody doesn't go to one place and say, he said this, goes to another place, he said something totally different. Why? Library, number one, could be an absolutely massively huge factor. Listening level, massive factor. 77 dB right here, always adjusted on my rig. And then there's the X factor, which can't even be explained by most people, and that is the personal preference within. What is it that you really want? Because it's me personally, I like live shows. I want the low energy to be there. Other people have a affinity for other stuff. If you know all of those things, all of the boxes are checked, you can you can interpret the message being given to you more clearly, and that means that you have higher quality information, which means that you make a better purchase with your money, instead of buying something and then realizing this isn't actually matching me because I didn't get as much info as I had wanted. So I'll leave you with that. This has great low end. It doesn't get into the way of the vocals with my library. It's got great vocal replay. It's energetic, but not overly so. You're not going to reach for an EQ. It's got proper extension that goes all the way off the scale. It gives the diminished waterfall replay to pretty much everything that you see and the way it's treated, whether it's the harmonics for vocals or cymbal strikes or keyboards or anything like that. I think it's got a high quality replay. I recommend it. Obviously, I put my logo and my name on it. Again, if you bought it, thank you very much. And we got lots of stuff to talk about in the future. And sorry about the finger. And I'm out.